God bless.
Okay. What to do when tragedy seems to be on the horizon? And I want to give out something in the life of King David that happened to him, and there's some key principles here that God adheres to, because what the tragedy is what caused a tragedy, rather, is that thing that has taken place that caused you to move into this place where God has taken you to. Okay? And one thing I want to show here is that God will take you into a place of tragedy. Okay, it's talking about when King David's son died and the Lord came to him, and this is in 2 Samuel chapter 12. And King David here has already completed the evil deed. Uriah the Hittite had died. He took his wife Bathsheba, and they are in the place where she is pregnant, and he's living back at his house, and the prophet has come to King David now and has pointed his finger, and everything has happened already, and it seems like a tragedy is about to unfold before King David. Now, believe me, this tragedy could have been a lot worse than it actually was. Okay, and so David did sway the heart of the Lord here somewhat, but he didn't save the child. He didn't save the child, but he did save the wife. You know, he did save the wife. And the Lord could have took his wife. He could have took the kingdom away from him. He could have banished him, you know, forever, because this was leaving the place in God where God required David to be, which was to stay in his righteous statutes, and he would establish the throne for him, you know. So now God, it could have been a lot worse than it was, but God didn't do it. So what we do now, number one, is what David did was he went before the Lord. The Bible said he began to fast and lay before the Lord, and you know, you don't have to be in a place where you are totally overwhelmed, but just between you and God. Nobody else even has to know it. You hungry? No, I'll eat later. You know, don't tell them the later is tomorrow or the next day, but you know, just have a private time between you and the Lord, and just go for a walk and talk with God and make sure that, man, everything is right. Remind God of all these things that has transpired, and the promises that God has made, and the word that needs to be kept in order for God's word to come true, that He has spoken to you and to us. Okay, and I want to read you a few verses here about exactly what happened. For those people who don't know this story of King David, man, the Bible is filled with tremendous stories. It's not just a book of rules, you know. It's not just a bunch of killing and submission and rules and religious stuff. That's not what it is. This is a book of relation. God is hammering out relationships between Him and man, and we are hammering out relationships between us and God. And King David was one person that did that quite successfully, more than any other man that is mentioned. And that's why the Bible calls him a man after God's own heart. You know. So I want to go down and verse 10 says, "Therefore the sword shall never depart from thy house." And this is part of the punishment that David got for, excuse me, for doing this deed that he did. And it said, "Because thou hast despised me." That's what I was saying. That this is God talking to David here. He has despised him, did this thing, that was so unpleasing to the Lord. And in this, he showed a dislike for the things of God. Okay, "and has taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife." Verse 11, "And thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will rise up evil against thee out of thy own house." And he did do that. "And I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor. And he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun. For thou didst it in secret. Thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun." I mean, the world can see it, when he says that. "And David said to Nathan," now this is Nathan the prophet is talking to him under the inspiration of God here. The Spirit of the Lord is all over Nathan. And Nathan has pointed his finger into his face, and he said, the Spirit came upon him. And he said, "Thou art the man," And then all this other stuff began to transpire. And he says, and David said to Nathan, now this is David, this is the thing that says, this is why God says David is a man after his own heart, because now this was the reaction. Any other man would have jumped up and started to try to justify himself. Now that's very, very important when you go before God, when this tragedy is coming upon your life. Don't go before God and try to justify yourself in your righteous deeds of who you are, because that is going to get you nowhere. That's a carnal nature reply, man, and it's just not going to work before God. See, that's the nature that God hates in all of us. He loves the man, but God don't like that carnal nature. And this was his reply. He says, "I have sinned against the Lord." Admitted it right there, man. Fell on his way. And Nathan said to David, "The Lord also hath put away thy sin, that thou shalt not die." See, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a whole lot worse, man. And he said, verse 14, it says, "Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme the child. The child also that is born unto thee shall surely die." Okay, and the child did die. Okay, "And Nathan departed into his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick." Note here that he did not call this David's wife, even though more than likely legally everything had been taken care of. No, we got to see things, what is transpiring in the eyes of God, in order to get things right, in order to get God's mercy. We got to stop looking at this as a cardinal way. Well, it's legal. Well, I don't care if it's legal. Is it moral? Is it moral? That's the real question there. Is it right before the eyes of God? Okay. And verse 16, "David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose and went to him and rise up from the earth, but he would not, neither did he eat bread with them." Okay. "And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died, and the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake to him, and he would not hearken to our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead?" Okay, they were expecting the worst. But now this is another thing, see? Right here, that King David, he didn't see things the way that men get. David saw things the way God. Yeah, he got caught up in some things for a while, but he was looking at things the way God looked at them, and not the way men looked at them. Okay. So, and David saw his servants whisper. David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to his servant, "Is the child dead?" And they said, "He is dead." Then David arose. Now look, watch this. David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came to the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread before him, and he did eat. And his servants said to him, "What is this thing that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep when the child, excuse me, for the child, while it was alive, but when the child is dead, thou dost rise and eat bread." And he said, "While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me that the child may live? But now he is dead, wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return unto me." That's one of the most famous statements in the Bible right there. And I tell people that about their loved ones when they pass away. I said, look, we can go to them, but they can't come back to us. Very seldom, 1 in a million times does God do that, brings that child back. You know, it's just not in God's nature to make that a habit of doing that. But what King David did here was he knew there was a punishment coming. See, this righteous thing, if there's something there that needs to be taken care of before you and the Lord, and make sure that your stuff stays right before you and God. Don't let the devil get you. When tragedy comes, surely the devil's at work in it and has stirred up a mess in your life. That's why it's so important to stay straight between you and God. And when tragedy is on the horizon, man, you lay before the Lord, and God will take care of it. David's turmoil there wasn't very long, and that child is laid up waiting for him in heaven, you know, and it's not taken away from him, but it's a treasure laid up for when this life is over. And the Lord will do these things for us. He can turn things around. The Lord God just did that for me just today. He turned a great tragedy around, and caused something that the devil had planned for us, you know. And the Lord said, "Surely these things I have said will be completed, and my word will be fulfilled." And make sure that you hear from God. You know, God can speak to you in this. Speak to you in dreams, speak to your heart, speak to you through other people. God can speak to you. So, and the Lord will bring more and more things for us, and until the rapture will this thing be fulfilled that God has said to me. Okay, so God bless. We'll see you again next time here on Crossing the Middle Ministry, when we have another great subject for you before the Lord. So God bless.